welcome to the At Home Author Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Vicky Weber, and I'm here with Brittany Plumeri. Today we are talking common mistakes in the self-publishing world. And I know personally I've made tons of mistakes, and we hope that through this podcast and all of our other free resources at athomeauthor.com that you will hopefully avoid some of those very same mistakes.
Hi, everyone. It's Brittany Plumeri here. And yes, Vicky, just like you said, I can't even go over every single mistake that I've made in self-publishing, or we'd be here all day.
I think one of the biggest ones for me was learning how to launch a book properly. I do feel like it's really easy when you're a new author to just assume, oh, well, I'll put the book out there in the world and then people will find it and they'll buy it. And you know, I knew that marketing played a part because I did do a lot of research when I first started out, but I didn't realize to what extent and how large a launch really does need to be. And so my first few books were definitely not nearly as successful as my later books once I actually figured out how to put together a marketing plan, what a marketing plan even was, and all of the things that go along with that.
Yeah, I myself, I remember my first book, I had booked a mentor and I said, I don't care if just one person buys my book. I really just want this book out there. And their exact words to me were, you're going to care when you spent all this money and you're not getting a return. And after a while, of course, you know, I needed to learn the marketing and everything as well that goes along with it. So my first book, I did absolutely no marketing versus my last book, I did a lot of marketing, and there was obviously a huge difference.
Yeah, like what you said, I hear from people all the time, well, I just want to make it to donate, or I just want to make this book to, to make a difference, or to hand out to schools, hand out to libraries, whatever it is. But like you said, when you start spending all of this money, you will start to care. And honestly, when you write a book with the intention of wanting to make a difference, if you don't market your book, no one is going to see that book. If you don't treat it like a business, no one's ever going to see it. So how can your book make a difference if it never makes it to anybody's bookshelf? So I definitely think that your heart needs to be in it in this industry, but a lot of people think, oh, well, marketing doesn't matter because, that's not why I'm doing this, but it does. It's part of the puzzle to that motivation there.
It absolutely is, because if you think about it, Amazon has millions of books just there. And if there's no marketing or no ads or no anything to try to gear people to your book, it's going to get lost in the millions of books that also don't have any marketing or ads or anything.
Well, there was even an author the other day who asked me a question about her book's Amazon page, and I actually knew her book's name, and I typed it into Amazon, and I'm scrolling, and couldn't find her book. So I tried typing her book title in with her name as the author, because sometimes that'll work. And it still didn't come up. I had to type the title name and the word book and her author name, and then the book finally appeared. But, the average person, like, I'm lucky I knew the title of her book. A customer is not going to know the name of her book. And so if it's not showing up when I'm typing in the title and her name, that just goes to show how oversaturated the children's picture book industry is, that all of these other books are popping up. And I do think that part of that is making sure you're picking things like unique titles. Some people don't do research into what they're going to call their book, and then they find out later there's already a book with that name, or there's a lot of books with similar names. So then you have to figure out, well, how do I make mine different? How do I make mine stand out?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the hardest part in this business too, is learning how to stand out. And that starts with illustrations, which I think is also a big mistake that many people make. Because when you're starting out, if you want to do this as a business, you might not have the money up front. And trust me, as two teachers sitting here talking to you, we didn't have the money up front. So in order to do we had to really make smart choices of who we were going to choose and things as like that. So with illustrations, if you're going to cut corners, think about it as yourself. Are you going to buy the book with the clip art on the front cover, or are you going to buy somebody's fantastically brilliant, beautiful drawing sitting next to it?
Well, and that's the thing too, is a lot of people will cut corners with illustrations and then be like, how do I get my books in bookstores? And I'm like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but a bookstore doesn't want your book if it's not going to be on par with the traditionally published books that it's going to sit next to. If it's going to look unprofessional, if it's going to look half finished, and honestly, with clip art, most of the time, those people don't have the commercial usage rights. So a bookstore can't carry that because of, all of the copyright and legal concerns that goes along with that. But yeah, if you cut corners on it, then you can't expect the same result. If you want the success of a traditional publishing company, you have to do the things that a traditional publishing company would do, and they invest in really good illustrations.
And I think that was my first big mistake in self-publishing. I was so naive to know to try out different illustrators. I just, the first one I went to, I was like, okay, this is great. Thank you. Like, I didn't give much direction, which, I'm not saying, you should take over completely, but I didn't give much direction in anything of what I viewed when I wrote this book. I didn't see my characters in what was drawn, and I just kept letting it go. And now I find myself wanting to re-illustrate that book and hire a different illustrator and start all over because my heart isn't in the finished product.
Well, and that's a question that I get really commonly is, how much do I let the illustrator do and create on their own, and how much input do I have? And I really do feel like the best books are a collaboration between the illustrator and the author, because it's really important that you communicate to them what things you do have a specific vision for. Especially my music books that teach music education concepts, my illustrator's not just going to know those things. And some of the mistakes that they might make if I didn't give guidance would be things that other music teachers, might be the reason that they don't purchase my book. If I let them draw the music notes backwards or, things like that. So it's really important that you have to communicate what's important to you and what you have a specific vision for. But it's also important to give your illustrators some creative freedom, because imagine if you were given a project and you were like, okay, here's exactly how I want it to look. I don't want it to deviate at all. You might not feel like a very good fit for that project because you don't have the room to be your own creative self. So it's really important to kind of walk that line and learn how to communicate what you need, but also be receptive to what an illustrator can bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that one of my illustrators, when they showed me what they had the first time, I was blown away, because I got to the point now where I give them a sentence or a page, and I say, here, show me what you can do with this. And I don't give much creative direction besides what I really need reiterated in there. But besides that, they usually blow me away with how good they can really make this story come to life.
Oh, definitely. Like when I give directions, I'll be like, all right, this is important to me. This page needs to have this concept. Otherwise, have at it. And if you pick somebody professional, they are going to do it, and they're going to do it really well, and you're going to have a great product.
Keyword is professional, which leads me to the next mistake. I didn't read my full contract. And that is something that needs to be read. When you're working with an illustrator, read that full contract, because there might come a time where you want to make plushies or you want to make stickers and you want to do these things. But if you don't own the rights to those characters, you can't make extra things. That illustrator sold you the right to the book, not the actual drawings inside the book. So definitely make sure when you're reading your contract, you know if you're able to do all this extra marketing or if you're not.
Well, that's important to note too, just because some people don't do their research on contracts in general when it comes to working with an illustrator. And so they forget the part where the illustrator grants them commercial usage rights. If you don't own the commercial usage rights to the images, you can't actually sell the book. And that's a problem that I've seen happen most frequently when people use illustrators from sites like Fiverr. Now, I am not hating on Fiverr because I have found one of my illustrators on Fiverr and she was fabulous to work with. It came out with a really great product. But that said, there are a ton of scammers on Fiverr because anybody can make an account. Nothing is vetted. So they can take artwork from anywhere on the internet and upload it as their portfolio. And what tends to happen is they'll get reported to Fiverr and the person will just create a new Fiverr account. So you need to be very careful that if you are going to use a site like Fiverr, first of all, be absolutely certain that they are not giving you clip art. The easiest way to do that is make sure you get sketches. If they will not give you sketches, that is a huge red flag. If they're giving you sketches, then that's something that they're drawing themselves, and that shouldn't be an issue. But with clip art, just because the illustrator may have purchased commercial usage rights, that does not give you the commercial usage rights. So you run into a whole big legality mess when you try to use clip art in your book. You're going to be way better off, look more professional, and have a ton more success if you hire and pay what they deserve, a professional illustrator.
Yeah, I did I ever tell you when I got scammed on Fiverr? So I was on Fiverr because I had taken a course and the self-publishing author that was doing the webinar said that they had checked out Fiverr and, go ahead and try Fiverr out. There's a bunch of good people. Well, I tried it out. I talked to this person. She seemed great. Her drawings were amazing. And I paid her $180 for some sketches and she sent me stick people, like actual stick people. And I was completely scammed. She was not an artist at all. So thank goodness I paid with PayPal because I was able to dispute it through. But in general, that was a lesson that I needed to really learn to ask for sketches.
Well, and that just goes to show because you wouldn't have communicated with this person if their portfolio didn't appeal to you.
It was perfect. It was literally perfect. It was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, well, and so that means that they took probably a traditionally published or a traditional illustrator from the traditional publishing world, took their work offline and uploaded it as their portfolio. And it makes me so angry that it happens with such frequency, but it does.
I think another mistake that I've made in the beginning was not communicating enough with the audience I was going for. I post on Instagram, I post on Facebook, but it's not just about posting. It's finding those sites and getting your name out there by even commenting underneath their posts. I definitely don't engage enough, and that's something that I'm trying to work on as well. Social media in itself is a beast that takes time. So even if it's just every single day, I mean, Vicky, I see you all the time now, totally on Facebook and killing it with communicating. But that's something that I'm working on. I'm trying to give myself a half hour a day of just commenting on pictures and posts, and just so people can see my handle. If they want to click it, they can click it.
I think that's something that people forget very easily is the average person can only name a handful of authors off the top of their head. And usually they're the same, like, huge names. Eric Carle, J.K. Rowling, Dr. Seuss. But the thing is, sometimes the people that they name, when someone in the picture book industry says, I'm going to be the next J.K. Rowling, okay, but she wasn't a picture book author.
Yeah. Even though she killed it with Harry Potter.
Right. So she did write for children, but she didn't write picture books. So you want to, first of all, make sure that if you are aspiring to be somebody, try to aspire to be somebody who's doing the same thing that you are, or is in the same industry as you are. But I think it's really easy to just assume, oh, I'm going to be successful and people are going to know my name. Even the bigger people, you know, sometimes I will name some children's picture book authors, and moms and teachers will be like, who? But they'll know the book title. They might not know the author's name, but they know the book title. So that's kind of an upward battle that you're going to need to fight when it comes to choosing the domain name for your website. I personally didn't choose to use my name because I knew I would use a pen name in the future for other genres. But I also knew that people wouldn't know who Vicky Weber was. My target audience wouldn't know who I was, but they would know my books and they would know my concept and they would know my ideas, and all of those things. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're moving forward.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, Vicky, because originally that was what I was going for, authorbplumeri.com. And the more I thought about it, who knows I exist besides the people that are in my everyday life? So I ended up switching it to a publishing page in case, like you said, if I wanted to go under pen names or anything like that, it's all under one place.
And I will say that for some people, it does work. There is no one size fits all when it comes to self-publishing. Especially in the picture book industry. So keep in mind that what works for one author might work for you, but it might not work for you, especially if you have a different target audience, a different concept. Some of my books are educational. So some of the things that work for my educational books don't work for my non-educational books. So you really need to make sure that you're doing your research and you're trying new things. But keep in mind that there's not a one size fits all, and you need to figure out what's going to work for you, your books, your schedule, and your concepts. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time for part 2 of this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to get notified when we release new episodes. Reviews are always appreciated. For more helpful content on getting your book published or successfully marketed, visit athomeauthor.com for all of our resources. See you next time.